Senator Perry, you may recall the debate that we had before this bill left the chamber concerning, under current law, if I'm stopped by a police officer for a traffic ticket, what is my current obligation as it relates to identifying myself?
You don't have one. You don't have to answer the question. You don't have to answer the inquiry if there is one.
Are you supposed to provide your identification?
You don't have to.
Okay. Does this bill in any way enlarge what an officer can ask you?
Absolutely not. Not in current law. It has nothing, it changes nothing that the officer is allowed to do today.
Under current law, as an officer, if I get stopped on a traffic ticket, is that officer able to ask me where I was born?
You can ask.
Am I obligated to answer?
No, sir.
So he can ask, and frankly, they can ask pretty much anything, but does
Correct.
this law that we're passing today,
Doesn't change current law.
so under current law, is an officer able to ask? Does the officer have authority under current law to ask where I was born?
After a lawful detainment, yes. If it's prior to a lawful detainment, then he's in violation of the other laws. But he can ask. You don't have to answer.
Would you agree with me that a traffic stop is a lawful detainer?
Yes.
Sorry?
Yes.
So if I'm stopped on a traffic stop, officer can ask me where I was born, correct?
If he deems it necessary and wants to, he can ask.
No, and I'm not trying to
You
be
can
flip. I just want to make
He can ask.
certain.
So what is your question?
Let me ask the question.
Specific to SB4, what is your question?
Hold it. I know you've been asking a lot of questions, and
Right.
you maybe just.
We've already had this debate. So
No, we hadn't had this debate.
Groundhog
No,
Day.
No, this is not Groundhog Day, I assure you.
there you go.
Okay? I'm just asking, under current law, when this bill left the Senate, I thought we agreed that the only thing a citizen was obligated to do was to identify themselves under current law. Do you recall that?
I recall that.
Okay. Under this particular bill, does it not go a step further in allowing now the officer under color of law to ask someone that's detained on a traffic stop where the person was born?
The version that left the Senate and the version that came over did not change current law with respect to inquiry.
You would agree with me that when we underline language in a bill, that that's new language, is it not?
Correct.
I'm going to ask you to go with me then, specifically. If I can get this to move. The 752.053. That section is entitled, as you go to it, Policies and Actions Regarding Immigration Enforcement.
And you're talking about the House version now.
Both versions.
Oops.
And I'm going to ask you to go to subsection B. Let me know when you're with me. 752.053.
Just read it to me.
Okay, in that section it says, in compliance with subsection A, a local entity, state criminal justice agency, or campus police department shall not prohibit or discourage a person who's a commissioned police officer, and I'm going to go down, from doing any of the following: inquiring into the immigration status of a person under lawful detention or under arrest. With respect to information relating to immigration status, lawful or unlawful, of any person under a lawful detention or under arrest, including information regarding the person's place of birth. So, help me with this, interpreting this to make sure, and you've said earlier you wanted to make certain that people understand what this law says. Do you glean from that if I'm stopped, a police officer would be able to ask me, if I'm stopped for a traffic ticket, a police officer would be able to ask me where I was born?
again, a police officer can ask, but you don't have to respond.
Of course it don't. But under this particular new law, it gives the police officer the authority to do it, does it not?
It's current law. We didn't
Well,
create new law.
Well, hold up now. It's
We did not create new immigration law. That's already available.
Okay.
Under.
When you say current law, this language is underlined. So underlined language in the
New
way
state
we do-
law.
I'm sorry.
It's new state law. It doesn't conflict with federal law.
You said it's federal law.
They can inquire today.
Okay, but this is new language, new state
Correct.
law language, right?
Correct.
So under state law now,
You can
an
ask.
officer can ask a citizen
You can ask.
that's stopped on a traffic ticket
You can ask.
where they're born, where they were born, right? So that's new law. Okay. Now, let me ask this question. If you have an unlawful arrest, if you have an unlawful arrest or detainer, and the person is subsequently held on a immigration detainer, what's the person's remedy?
Unlawful
Let me say that
arrest.
again. Let me say it again. If you have an unlawful arrest or detention, and the person is detained, what is that person's remedy?
It's unlawful arrest, you'd have to let them go. I would assume. I'm not.
Does this particular bill or the amendments that came from the House address that issue?
Not to my knowledge.
Should that be addressed given the fact that your purpose is to provide clarity in terms of what individuals are supposed to do or not supposed to do under this law?
That's already current law.
What is current law?
The immigration system would tell you if you have an unlawful arrest, the detainer, I believe, is void. So that's already.
I'm sorry, I can barely
My
understand you.
voice is about gone.
I understand.
So the immigration law, I would believe, and I believe I'm correct on this, and I can find out if I need to. If it's unlawful detainment, you can't keep them, keep them in detainment. That's currently law.
Shouldn't we not check that, sir, before we
I'm
concur on this bill?
I'm not making a law to do federal immigration law.
No,
your
and I
question
understand
goes to
that.
the
But
heart
I'm saying
of
that this is state law right here.
You're
So I'm
going
asking
to-
under state law now. I'm asking under state law,
If
not
I
federal
underst-
law.
If I understand your question, unlawful request leads to a detainment. Unlawful arrest leads to a detainment. I would assume since it's predicated on an unlawful arrest that detainment would not be valid.
So you're making the assumption.
But I didn't change that into law today. It's
Well,
not
no,
different.
but it's not addressed in the law either.
It wasn't in the scope of the bill.
Members, we don't talk over each other, please.
No.
One has the floor and speaks, and the other has the floor and speaks.
Yes, sir.
So let's go back to SB 4 again.
No,
Apply the law as it is today, and that's all you do. So in your situation, I did not change the outcome or response to an unlawful arrest.
again, let me point you to this particular section. You give, under state law now, additional authority for law enforcement to ask additional questions concerning the place of an individual's birth. I'm not talking federal law. I'm talking state law. Because you have the federal law and you have state law. And my question to you is, under state law, given this additional authority, if you have a violation of this particular section, because you talk about violations of this section, both the House bill and the Senate bill, of section 752.053, if you have an unlawful arrest, what is the person, and the person is detained, have an immigration detainer, what is the person's remedy? That's all I'm asking. Under state law, under current or either proposed state law.
What qualifies as an unlawful request in your arrest under your situation?
What qualifies as an
Well, I mean,
unlawful arrest?
why-
Whatever's unlawful.
I mean, an unlawful arrest is what under your hypothetical?
Well, an unlawful arrest is an arrest determined by a court to be unlawful.
Okay. So what happens in the event that we
That's
have that
what I'm
today?
asking you.
What happens in the event that that happens today?
I am not the author of the bill. I'm asking you.
Are you a lawyer?
Well, are you paying me to answer this question?
So I'm just telling you today, if it's an unlawful arrest, I assume the person gets to go. I'm not an attorney on that, but that's beyond the scope of the bill. Whatever is allowable today is allowable tomorrow.
Sir, the issue is not addressed here.
So you asked for the place of birth.
I mean, you're the
Is that
author.
you asked for a place of birth. Is that going to be the grounds for an unlawful arrest? I think that's important information. Am I violating a law in the state today by having an unlawful by request for a place of birth? Is that a violation of state law today?
Sir, I think under current state law, and I think Senator Huffman and I had this conversation too before this bill left. The only thing an officer is supposed to request from a citizen
Is
on a
identification.
traffic stop is the person's identification.
Could that identification?
You now provide that the officer can ask a person where they were born. That's new law under color of law. Because if it wasn't new law, you wouldn't have underlined it. That's how that works. And so, and my point is simply this, and I'm not going to continue to believe because I got a couple other areas we need to go into.
Okay.
Under current law, you say that this particular provision, if a person is illegally arrested or detained, that this particular bill does not address it, and its current law would be that person's remedy. Is that correct?
The current law, if a person is illegally detained, that did not change through SB 4.
Okay.
The disposition of that illegal detainment did not change.
All right. Let me ask this. As it relates to victims, crime victims and witnesses, I'm looking specifically at Article 6, inquiry by peace officer regarding immigration and nationality of crime victims or witnesses. Your bill under Section 6.01, the House version, we had no equivalent in the Senate. The House version basically indicates that in the course of an investigation of an alleged criminal offense, a peace officer may inquire as to the nationality or immigration status of a victim of or witness to the offense only if the officer determines that the inquiry is necessary to investigate the offense or provide the victim or witness with information. And then the next subsection says it does not prevent a peace officer from conducting a separate investigation of any offense alleged, any other alleged criminal offense, or inquiring into the nationality immigration status of a victim of or witness to the criminal offense if the officer has probable cause to believe that the victim or witness has engaged in specific conduct constituting a separate criminal offense. If a person, and help me with this, because I really don't know the answer, if a person is in this country illegally, is that a criminal offense?
Yes. Well, no.
So,
And very criminally, it's a civil.
I'm sorry?
Civil is not coming over. So to your question on this one specifically,
Right.
an officer does not inquire if they're a victim of a crime or an informant to a crime, but in the event that they may be involved in sex trafficking, human trafficking, and it's in the interest of that individual involved in that, the officer can inquire to help them. That's what was made clarity in the House. The House felt like a generic statement that a victim cannot have an inquiry of their status or an informant was not clear, because in the situation where you're trying to help that victim that may be in that situation, that may be a necessary piece of information.
Okay.
So it's to provide officers the opportunity to help a victim in that situation, not to be used against that victim.
Okay.
And that was a clarifying distinction.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm asking, and I don't know the answer, if someone else knows it, that's fine. Is fact that a person's in this country illegally a criminal offense? That's my question. And if you don't know,
No, I don't think it's qualified as criminal. No,
Senator Garcia, are you shaking your head back here?
it's civil.
It's civil?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, one other question. I understand that President Obama signed an executive order as it relates to young people that are on campus, on college campuses, the Dreamers. If that executive order is revoked, would those students then be subject to deportation under this particular bill?
No, it's not a federal immigration bill. No deportation under SB 4 is created, allowed, or incurred. On the campuses specifically, those are exempted out anyway. But it's not a federal immigration bill. There is no deportation provisions in SB 4.
Are they subject to detainer? Would they be subject to detainer?
Subject to ICE rules. If ICE feels like a student on that campus needs to be detained, they have every right as a federal jurisdiction to do that.
So this particular state law, under section 752.053, would empower a peace officer on a college campus to, assuming that we didn't have, this is the assumption that I'm making, we didn't have the executive order by former President Obama, would empower that peace officer to arrest, in instances of a traffic stop, arrest a student, and also ask them what their place of birth is, ask them about their citizenship status, and if determined that they're not citizens of this country, to take them into custody for detainment. Is that correct?
That's not correct.
Help me where I'm wrong.
It's not. That's not what SB 4 allows.
Okay, tell me what it does and tell me what it does.
It doesn't apply to the college campuses in that regards.
Okay, how does it apply?
It's exempted out pretty much on the college campus
Can
side.
you tell me
as
where that is?
individual students.
I'm sorry.
On the student side. Now, if you're a commissioned peace officer that happens to work on a college campus, you're still subject to SB 4.
Could you kind of point, because I was reading the bill and I didn't see that in the bill.
It didn't change from the Senate version. That exclusion was left in there. But Senate Bill 4, if you're a commissioned peace officer that happens to be employed by a campus, those provisions apply. But students specifically are not.
So you're saying students on the campus, if they're Dreamers, don't have to worry about this?
Well,
I mean, if that's the case,
no
I'll sit
students
down.
on the campuses.
I'm sorry?
No students on the campuses have to worry about it.
Okay, so this does not apply to students, quote unquote, referred to as Dreamers on college campuses or any other campus. Is that correct?
If they're not in commission of a crime and it's a commissioned peace officer on that campus, it can apply. But if they're not in commission of a crime, it doesn't apply to them.
Would it apply if I was a student on that campus and I'm stopped for a traffic violation?
No,
It would not apply.
no.
And that's,
It's in the bills.
okay, and maybe I just hadn't read all of that. Thank you, sir. And I know you've been standing up for a while. I think I'm going to sit down now.